When Ed asked me to come and speak today, I have to say I wasn't at all convinced it was a good idea. In fact, Ed, I thought it was a terrible idea. I can't claim to speak for Muslims. I'm not a theological scholar, and I'm certainly very far away from most people's image of what a good Muslim should be. And that makes me an easy target for those who don't want Killiam to succeed. But it's exactly those reasons that Ed convinced me that he wanted me to speak. I studied Islam when I converted. Later I did actually the same master's degree as Ed at SOAS, majoring in modern trends in Islam. I have a huge respect for Islam, and most importantly, I'm bringing up my 2 children as practicing Muslims here in Britain. From my own practical experiences and my academic studies, there's one thing that I've learned, and that is that Muslims don't fit into clear-cut, neat, simplistic categories any more than anyone else does, for that matter. They come in all colours, garbs, shades of belief. And as I understand it, one of Killiam's objectives is to try to demonstrate that there isn't just one way to be a British Muslim. Islamist extremists and tabloid writers come from very different worlds, but they both make the same mistake, which is that they think that to be a Muslim, you have to adhere to very rigid codes of dress, behavior, and belief, and that there's an unbridgeable divide between Muslims and the rest. And I think they're wrong. Most British Muslims may not be like me, but they're not ghettoized aliens, and they're certainly not the loudmouth cartoon reactionaries that all too often we see on our TV screens. The vast majority are neither. Most Muslims are law-abiding, moderate people who don't feel that contradiction between being Muslim and being British. But through no fault of their own, they now find themselves in a very uncomfortable situation. And unlike people from other minority religions, like Sikhs and Hindus, Buddhists, they often find themselves regarded with hostility and a certain amount of suspicion. I'm not naive. I can see why this is happening. Yes, there's a growing tide of Islamophobia, and I think that has become, to some extent, an acceptable face of racism. But much of the blame has to lie at the feet of Islamist fanatics, those who plot terror attacks, those who shout hate-filled slogans in the street, those who make weaselly excuses to the media. Someone now has to stand up and tell the truth, that there is no necessary conflict between being British and being Muslim, between Islamic values and Western values. I don't want my children to have to choose between being British and being Muslim. At times, I have a 10-year-old son and an 8-year-old son, and at times, my oldest son shows signs of confusion. He's got one set of cousins here who go to discos, and he's got another set of cousins in Pakistan who are members of organizations like Tablighi Jamaat and Jamaat-e-Islami. And he comes back confused, and I can see that there's part of him that's looking for his own identity. And I can even see now how a culturally conflicted teenager might find that political ideology which is subversive and macho and exclusive and certain very attractive, and specifically because it gives a very particular identity to a child that's searching for that, trying to find his way. And as Sheikh Abdul Aziz al-Bukhari said, it's easy to be misled. And it's something that I worry about. I worry all the time about it. Someone has to give mainstream moderate Muslims in this country a voice, and I believe that Killiam is that organisation. there are very few people who have the courage or the depth of understanding or the conviction to do what Ed and Marge and their colleagues are doing. And so I believe it's vital that British Muslims and their friends give them as much support as possible. If change is to happen, then it really has to happen from within the Muslim community. I'm sure some of you have read about the verbal attacks and the threats from Killiam's detractors over the weekend. And being more cowardly than Ed, I had a little wobble. And he sent me a text saying, "Be brave. If there was no response from the dark side, then we would be failing." And that's what Killiam is about for me. It's about challenging that dark side. I really hope they succeed, and I just wanted to come and wish them luck.